Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. Zira knelt on the cold metal floor, her wrists chained, her neck locked in a glowing silver collar. Around her were tall alien generals, their faces hidden behind sharp armor, their voices filled with cruelty. They laughed. They pointed at her like she was an object, not a living being. At the far end of the room, on a high black throne, sat Lord Malzok, the cruel tyrant of the Drax Empire. His red eyes glowed, his voice deep and terrifying. "She is my favorite," he said, leaning forward. "Obedient, silent, beautiful. Tonight, she will serve you." Zira didn't speak. She had learned not to. Speaking meant pain. Her body was thin from hunger. Her back was scarred from beatings. But inside her chest something still lived, something quiet like a fire hiding in the ashes. Hope. As the generals moved closer, the ship suddenly shook. Loud alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed. "Intruders! Sector 7!" a robotic voice shouted. Malzok stood up in anger. "Who dares attack my ship?" In that moment of chaos, the guards left Zira behind. They ran to their stations. Doors slammed. Weapons powered up. Zira looked around. She was alone in the hall. This was her only chance. She ran. She didn't know where she was going. The ship was huge and full of danger. But she followed the signs that pointed to the escape bay. Her bare feet bled as she ran across sharp metal floors. Her collar blinked red. Someone had activated her tracker. Still, she didn't stop. She reached the hangar and saw a small cargo pod. Open, unguarded. Without thinking, she jumped inside and slammed the door shut. The pod launched seconds later, shooting into the blackness of space. The stars stretched around her like cold diamonds. The pod was shaking. The systems were damaged. Smoke filled the tiny cabin. Sparks flew. Zira coughed and cried, her hands still chained, her heart pounding. The pod was going down. Fast. She didn't care where it landed, as long as it was far from him. The pod crashed, hard on a dusty brown planet. Smoke and sand filled the air. Hours passed. The sun rose, hot and harsh. Zira crawled out of the broken pod, weak and shaking. Her silver skin was covered in dirt and bruises. The control collar still blinked. Her chains dragged behind her. She walked a few steps, then fell. Miles away, a human man named Eli was fixing a broken mining truck in his scrapyard. He wore simple clothes, old boots, oil-stained pants, and a sun-faded shirt. His face was rough, but his eyes were kind. He lived alone on this forgotten planet, working with machines far from war and politics. But today, something different caught his eye. Smoke. Coming from the South Ridge. Eli grabbed his tool belt, climbed into his hover bike and drove toward the smoke trail. When he reached the crash site, he stopped. There, lying in the dirt, was a girl. Not human. Her skin shimmered silver. Her body was thin, dirty, and chained like a prisoner. A strange collar blinked around her neck. She looked up at him, barely conscious. Her lips moved. "Help." Eli knelt beside her. Hey, it's okay. You're safe now." She flinched when he touched her arm. He pulled back. "I'm not gonna hurt you." Zira stared at him, confused. No one had ever said that before. Eli carried her gently to his workshop. He placed her on a soft bed made from old pillows. He brought water, wrapped her wounds, and tried to remove the collar, but it shocked him. "Damn thing's locked tight," he muttered. Zira opened her eyes. "You are not Drax." "No," Eli said. "I'm just a guy. Name's Eli." She watched him quietly, waiting for pain, for orders, but he just handed her a blanket and walked away to give her space. Zira blinked. For the first time in years. She wasn't a slave. She didn't understand what she was feeling, but deep inside, something whispered again. Zira woke up in silence, not to shouting, not to chains being yanked, not to the sound of boots or electric whips. Just silence. A soft breeze entered through the open window. Somewhere outside, a machine hummed gently. She sat up quickly, ready to defend herself. But her body was too weak. Her eyes scanned the room. Metal walls, wires, old furniture. This wasn't a prison. It was someone's home. Strange and human, but quiet. Her chains were still on, and the control collar still blinked slowly around her neck. But no one was watching her. No one was yelling. That made her nervous. In the next room, Eli was welding a broken gear on the work table. Sparks flew around his gloves. He heard a soft knock on the wall. He turned. Zyra stood there, wobbly, alert, confused. She didn't speak. "You're awake," he said, turning off his torch. "You've been out for almost a whole day." She didn't reply. Her eyes locked on a sharp tool beside him. She took a step back. Eli noticed. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he said gently. "That thing's for fixing engines, not people." She tilted her head. "Why help? Me?" Eli shrugged. "You were dying. I couldn't just walk away." She frowned. "Most would. Then most are jerks." He offered her a cup of water. Zyra took it slowly. Her hands shook. She sniffed it, unsure. "It's clean," Eli said. "Filtered. I ain't trying to poison you." She drank. It felt strange to taste something that wasn't drugged or bitter. Just plain cold water. Her body was still weak, but her mind was sharper now. This man wasn't like the others she had known. He didn't yell. He didn't touch her without permission. He didn't even ask who she was. He just treated her like a person. That was the strangest part of all. Over the next few hours, Zyra observed him. He fixed machines. He whistled. He cooked strange-smelling food. He talked to an old broken robot like it was alive. He even laughed once while reading a dusty book. She didn't understand him. He had no soldiers. No guards, no power. He was just a nobody. And yet, he had saved her life. That night she couldn't sleep. She sat outside on the metal steps, staring at the twin moons above. Eli joined her with 2 mugs of something hot. "It's called cocoa," he said, offering her one. "You don't have to drink it, just smells nice." Zyra looked at it, unsure, then slowly took it. They sat together in silence. Finally she spoke. "I was a gift." Eli glanced at her. "What do you mean?" She looked down. "Given to Lord Malzok. I belonged to him since I was 12, trained to serve. Obey, please." Eli clenched his jaw. "That's sick." Zyra's voice cracked. "When I ran, I didn't think I would live." Eli looked at her. Really looked at her. "Well, you did, and now you're free." She shook her head. "Not with this." She tapped the collar. "Tracker. Pain controller. I can't take it off." Eli leaned forward. "Then we'll find a way to remove it." She stared at him. "Why? I'm not your problem." He took a breath. "Maybe not, but you're someone who needs help. That's enough for me." Zyra blinked fast. No one had ever said that to her before. Later that night she lay on the floor, curled up in a blanket. Her bed remained untouched. She didn't trust soft things yet. But she watched Eli from the corner of her eye as he sat. In the workshop, working under a single dim light, she didn't understand his kindness. But part of her didn't want to run anymore. Far away, in the dark corridors of Lord Malzok's warship, an officer stepped forward. "My lord, we've picked up a signal." Malzok's eyes burned like fire. "Where is she?" The officer hesitated. "A human. Planet, Sector 13, mining colony." Malzok smiled coldly. "Send the hunters. Bring back what is mine." The night was quiet, but Zyra couldn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the cot, staring at the small window. The stars outside felt too close. Too familiar. Too dangerous. The collar on her neck blinked gently. A slow red pulse, like a heartbeat she didn't want. Her fingers ran over the edges. Burn marks from past shocks still scarred her skin. Down the hall, Eli slept in a chair, his hat pulled low over his eyes, a half-finished book in his lap. Zyra watched him, wondering, why is he kind? Why does he smile when I walk into the room? Why does he treat me like I matter? She didn't have answers. But she knew one thing. This couldn't last. Just before sunrise, Eli woke to a sharp sound. A scream. He jumped up, grabbed his tool wrench, and ran to Zyra's room. She was curled on the floor, shaking, whispering something over and over. No chains. No chains. No chains. Eli knelt beside her. Hey, it's okay. You're safe. Zyra's eyes snapped open, glowing faint blue from fear. She looked at him like he was a ghost. Was it a dream? She asked in a broken voice. He nodded slowly. Yeah, just a bad dream. She sat up slowly, wrapping the blanket around her. Her body trembled. I remember the night I was taken, she whispered. I remember the first time they put the collar on. I screamed. They laughed. Eli sat beside her, silent. He told me I would never escape, she added. He said if I ran, they'd hunt me forever. Eli looked at her gently. You did run. She stared at her hands. But he was right. I can't escape. Not while this thing is still on me. Later that morning, Eli rolled out his toolbox. They sat in the middle of the workshop, a pile of wires and circuits around them. Let's see if we can crack this collar, he said. Zyra flinched. If it senses tampering, it shocks me. He paused. We'll be careful. You trust me? She hesitated, then nodded. He leaned in and carefully examined the collar. Glowing wires, alien steel, tiny pulses ran through it. Looks like it's coded to your heartbeat, he muttered. Smart tech. Evil but smart. Zyra closed her eyes. If it kills me, just don't let them take my body back. Eli frowned. Zyra, don't talk like that. I'm gonna get it off. You'll live. You'll be free. He found a small screw near the base. Okay, on 3. Zyra held her breath. 1, 2, 3. He turned the screw slowly. Zzz! The collar sparked, and Zyra screamed in pain. Stop! She gasped. It burns. Eli backed off quickly. I'm sorry. The collar returned to blinking slowly again. Zyra was crying now. Quiet tears, falling without sound. Eli looked down. His hands shook from guilt. I couldn't even fix one collar, he said softly. Zyra wiped her face. You tried. That means more than you think. That evening, Zyra stepped outside for air. She looked at the dry sky, the rust-colored dirt, the broken fences. This world was ugly, but honest. Unlike the cold halls of Malzok's palace, this planet didn't lie. She could breathe here. She didn't want to lose that. Suddenly, a sharp pain hit her head. She staggered. The collar pulsed fast. Her eyes rolled back, and a projection burst from the collar into the sky. It formed a small hologram of Lord Malzok's face, red and monstrous. Zyra. Of House Thayan, his voice growled. You are property of the Drax Empire. Your escape is treason. You have 1 cycle to return, or you will be retrieved by force. The message vanished. Zyra fell to her knees, breathing hard. Eli ran out. What the hell was that? She looked up at him, terrified. They found me. Miles above the planet in orbit, a black ship hovered, silent and deadly. Inside it, alien hunters prepared their weapons. They locked onto the signal sent by the collar. Their orders were clear. Bring her back. Alive or broken. The workshop was filled with silence. Zyra sat on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest, her face pale. The collar on her neck had stopped glowing, but now it felt heavier than ever. Eli paced nearby, running his fingers through his hair. They saw you, he said quietly. They sent a signal through that thing. They know where you are. Zyra nodded slowly. I told you, the past never forgets, especially when it owns you. Eli slammed his wrench on the table. You're not a slave. Not anymore. Zyra looked at him, eyes full of pain. I still wear their chain. The night was cold. Zyra stood in front of the mirror in the hallway, touching the collar with trembling hands. She whispered to her reflection, You are not his. You are not a thing. But her body still flinched at shadows. Her heart still froze when she heard deep voices. Behind her, a quiet voice said, Let me try again. She turned. Eli stood there, holding a small silver tool and a flashlight. I found a safer way to unlock it, but you'll have to trust me. I'll need to be close. Zyra hesitated. Then she nodded. She sat down. Eli knelt behind her. The moment his fingers touched the back of her neck, she gasped, not in pain but in shock. No one had ever touched her gently before. His hands were rough from tools, but they moved slow and careful, like she was something precious. Her breathing slowed. Eli worked quietly, muttering to himself. Alien locks are tricky, but not impossible. He slid a tiny pin into a groove. Click. The collar beeped once. A light turned green. Zyra's eyes widened. That's never happened before. One more second, Eli whispered. He twisted the pin again. Snap. The collar fell to the floor. Zyra didn't move. She touched her neck slowly, feeling skin that hadn't been free in years. I can breathe. Eli looked at her. You're free now, Zyra. No more control, no more pain. Zyra's hands covered her mouth as tears poured down her cheeks. He reached out and gently wiped one away. And for the first time, she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in. They sat outside under the stars, wrapped in a blanket. Zyra wore one of Eli's oversized shirts, her legs tucked under her. She looked up. You don't even know who I really am. Why did you help me? Eli leaned back. I didn't need to know your past. I just saw someone who needed saving. She turned to him. But I was broken. He smiled softly. Sometimes broken things are the strongest when they're put back together. Zyra looked into his eyes. There was no pity there, no fear, only something warm, gentle, honest. Then, without thinking, she reached up and touched his face. It was the first time she touched anyone by choice. Eli froze for a moment. Then he placed his hand over hers. No words were spoken, but something passed between them, like a quiet promise. Later, as they lay near the fire, Zyra asked, If they come for me, will you run? Eli didn't answer right away. He reached out and held her hand. I won't run, Zyra, he said. I'd rather stand and fall beside you than live without you. Zyra smiled through her tears. No one's ever said that to me. Then, they were all fools, he replied. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and for the first time in her life, she felt safe. Far away, on the hunter ship orbiting above, a red light blinked. The collar's signal had vanished. One of the hunters growled, She's free, another replied, Then kill everyone near her. The wind had changed. It carried a sharp scent, burned metal, ozone, and danger. Eli noticed it first. He was working on the water generator when the wind shifted and the birds in the canyon suddenly went quiet. He stood still, tools in hand, eyes narrowed. Then he heard it, a deep hum in the sky, not thunder, something worse. Zyra ran to the door, her eyes wide. They're here, she whispered. Eli dropped his tools and grabbed his rifle. Inside, now. Zyra didn't argue. Her instincts screamed the same. She had heard that hum before on the nights when Lord Malzok sent ships to wipe out rebel villages. She knew it too well. Above them, 3 sleek black hunter crafts broke through the clouds, silent but deadly, shaped like daggers in the sky. They hovered without warning. No message, no lights, just fear. In the house, Eli opened a hidden floor panel. Crawl space, he said, It's old but deep enough to hide in. Zyra hesitated. What about you? I'll lead them away. No. Eli. He placed a hand on her cheek. You saved me without even trying. Let me save you now. She looked into his eyes. Then, slowly nodded. He kissed her forehead. I'll be back. I promise. Minutes later, Zyra watched from the shadows as Eli mounted his hoverbike and sped off toward the desert, a dust trail behind him. One of the hunter ships peeled off and followed him. Zyra waited, heart pounding. Then, the other two ships landed at the edge of the property. Metal legs unfolded. Red search beams swept across the land. The ground shook. From beneath the crafts, alien hunters dropped down, tall, armored, faceless. Their weapons pulsed with energy. They moved like wolves, fast, precise, cold. One of them sniffed the air. Her scent is recent. She's close. Another replied. Secure the house. Burn it if necessary. Zyra gritted her teeth. She had lived her whole life running, hiding, but not anymore. She crawled out of the floor tunnel and grabbed the EMP pistol Eli had made. It shook in her hands. She had never held a weapon before, but she was done being weak. When one of the hunters stepped into the kitchen, Zyra fired. Zap! The bolt hit its chest. Sparks flew, the machine armor short-circuited. It collapsed with a loud crash. She ran toward the back door, only to find two more hunters waiting. One grabbed her by the arm. She screamed and kicked, struggling, but she wasn't alone. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the side of the house. Dust filled the air. Through the smoke, Eli roared in on his hoverbike, swinging a steel pipe like a club. He smashed into one hunter, knocking it over, then rolled across the ground and shot the second with his old shotgun. Didn't I say I'd... Come back, he shouted. Zyra gasped. You're crazy. Only on weekends. Together, they ran toward the old storage shed. Inside, Eli had a surprise waiting. A rusted mining mech nearly 6 meters tall, once used to move stone. Now repurposed for war. He climbed into the cockpit. You drive, I shoot? Zyra stared. I've never driven anything. Then today's your first lesson. She jumped into the pilot seat. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the controls. Hold on, she said. The old machine roared to life. Outside, the hunters regrouped. But now they were the ones being hunted. The mining mech stomped through the dust, swinging its giant steel arms. Eli fired pulse charges from the mounted cannon. Zyra drove with wild fear in her eyes, but also focus. They fought like a team. One by one, the hunters fell. The ground burned. The sky filled with smoke. The property, her new home, was in ruins. But they were still standing. After the last hunter was destroyed, Zyra climbed out of the cockpit. Her hands were blistered. Her body ached, but she was alive. Eli joined her, breathing hard. They looked around. Fires burned. Their fence was gone. The water tank cracked. But in all that destruction, something else had grown. A bond. Not forced. Not programmed. Real. Zyra touched her bare neck. No collar. No cage. And no more running. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let's rebuild it. Together. Far above the smoking land, the final hunter ship turned silently. A dark figure inside spoke into a transmitter. Failed, but she is not the same anymore. The voice on the other end replied, Then the Tyrant will come himself. The night sky was quiet again. Too quiet. Ashes floated gently over Eli's ranch like black snow. The fires were out, but the damage remained. Burned buildings, broken machines, and the smell of smoke still hung in the air. Zyra sat by the ruins of the old workshop, holding one of Eli's jackets over her shoulders. Her body was tired, but her eyes stayed sharp. She looked. Up stars blinked softly above her, but something was wrong. One of those stars was moving. Fast, Eli stepped beside her, covered in dust and small wounds. His hands were wrapped in cloth. He sat down beside her without a word. She leaned into him. "I thought they were the worst," she whispered. "But something else is coming, isn't it?" Eli nodded. "Yeah." Far above, in low orbit, a massive ship unmasked itself, twice the size of the others, glowing with blood-red lights. Inside its control room stood Lord Malzak. He wasn't like the hunters. He was worse. Taller than any man, his body made of both flesh and armor. His voice carried the coldness of deep space. "She rejected her place," he growled. "Now I will take back what belongs to me." Back on the ground, an alert beeped on Eli's broken scanner. He hit the screen. "Incoming!" Zaira stood slowly. "How many?" Eli checked again. "Just one ship." She froze. "It's him." Eli turned. "The Tyrant?" She nodded. There was no time to run, no time to hide. Eli grabbed a modified blaster and strapped on his old mining armor. Thick, scratched, but still strong. Zaira picked up the EMP launcher and 2 small explosive discs. They looked at each other. "No. More running?" Eli asked. Zaira gave a half smile. "No more." The sky lit up with a red beam as Malzak's ship descended like a falling god. It landed with thunder, the ground split. Rocks flew, trees burned just from the heat of its engines. From the ship's front hatch, steam hissed. Then a tall shadow stepped out, Malzak, twice the size of a normal man, eyes like burning coals, a jagged crown of bone and steel on his head. He looked directly at Zaira. "I gave you life, and you repay me." "With betrayal?" Zaira stood firm. "You gave me chains, he gave me freedom." Malzak's gaze moved to Eli. "Human. A bug. You think love makes you strong?" Eli raised his gun. "No, but it makes dying worth it." Malzak laughed. It was deep, cruel, and full of hate. "Then come, little bug. Show me your strength." The fight began without warning. Eli ran forward, blasting with everything he had. Malzak blocked it with one arm, his armor absorbing the impact. Zaira circled, firing EMPs, blinding flashes of light that slowed the Tyrant's movement. But he was too fast, too strong. He threw Eli back into a wall of stone. Zaira screamed, "Eli!" He got up, limping, blood running from his mouth. "Still alive." Malzak aimed a plasma blade at Zaira. "You belong to me, Zaira." She stepped forward, lifting one of the explosive discs. "Not anymore." She threw it at his feet. Boom! Smoke and fire swallowed the field. When the dust cleared, Malzak was wounded but standing. "Fools," he growled. "I created you, and now I'll erase you." Zaira walked toward him slowly. "I am not yours. I was never yours." She looked back at Eli, then placed her hand over her heart. "I choose him." Suddenly, her skin lit up, gold and white energy surrounding her. The old bond she had buried awakened fully. The slave was gone. In her place stood something new, a Saran woman reborn by love. Malzak charged. But this time, Zaira didn't run. She met him head-on, striking with power she didn't know she had. Her hands glowed. Her voice roared. Eli, bleeding but strong, returned to the fight with a final charge, striking Malzak with a steel pipe charged with energy. Together they brought him to his knees. Malzak gasped, "You both are nothing." Zaira stepped close, her voice calm. "No, we are everything you're not." She struck him one last time, and the Tyrant fell. For good. The ship behind him powered down, silent. The last shadow of her past had faded. Zaira collapsed beside Eli, both of them breathing hard. She took his hand, her eyes filled with tears. "You fought a monster. For me." Eli smiled. "No, I fought for us." The sun rose gently over the broken land. Golden light touched the edge of Eli's ranch, where burned fences now stood halfway rebuilt, and where ashes had begun to give way to green sprouts. The Tyrant was gone. The war was over. But the story was not finished. Zira stood barefoot in the doorway of the repaired workshop, wearing a long dress Eli had sewn together from old cloth and pieces of his coat. It didn't sparkle like Saran royalty. It wasn't grand, but to her, it was perfect. On her neck, where the collar once sat, was now a simple necklace. A ring, Eli's ring. Inside, Eli tightened the last bolt on a new solar generator. He still had bruises. His arm was in a sling, but his heart was lighter than it had ever been. He looked up as Zira entered, and froze. "You look beautiful," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Zira smiled gently. "I've never felt beautiful before. You always were. You just couldn't see it." She stepped close, and they both laughed when she nearly tripped on the loose floorboard. "Still not used to soft shoes," she joked. Eli chuckled. "We can fix that." She looked into his eyes. "Eli, I've walked in chains my whole life. But with you, I want to walk forward. Together." He took her hands. "I've been alone for years," he said softly. "But after you came into my life, I never wanted to go back. I don't care about stars, empires, or rules." He paused. "I just care about you." Later that evening, a small crowd of humans from nearby stations gathered in the field. No priests, no long speeches. Just two people standing under the sky they both nearly died under. Zira wore her simple dress. Eli wore a clean shirt and boots, and in the middle of the circle, they exchanged rings made from melted scrap metal, crafted with love, not gold. Zira spoke first. "I was once a number, a thing, a slave. But this man, he gave me no orders. He gave me space. He gave me choice." She looked into his eyes. "And I choose him. Every day." Eli held her hand. "I thought I was fixing a stranger's wounds. I didn't know she'd fix my soul." The wind blew gently. The crowd clapped. And just like that, Zira became a wife. Not a possession. A partner, not a servant. A free woman. Weeks passed. Zira planted new crops with her own hands. Eli rebuilt their roof. Slowly, imperfectly, but strong. Every night they ate together under the stars. No guards, no fear, no control, only laughter, peace, and one another. One morning, Zira stepped into the field holding a small device. It blinked softly. "A signal from the Saran Council," she said. Eli wiped his hands. "More trouble?" Zira smiled. "No. They want to meet you." Eli raised a brow. "Why?" "Because the humans here only see me as your wife now. But to the galaxy, I'm something more." Eli laughed. "Tell them I'm just a regular guy." Zira kissed his cheek. "That's exactly why they want to meet you. They didn't go off to rule a kingdom, they didn't become heroes in history books, but they became something more important. A reminder that love could cross galaxies, that kindness could break chains, that even a slave and a nobody could build a home. Together." Late one night, as they lay on the roof staring up at the stars, Eli whispered, "Do you ever miss your old world?" Zira took his hand. "No," she said, "because my world is right here, with you, and under a sky once filled with warships and fear, now only peace remained."